Good morning. I'm Colonel Phil McNair, and this morning I'd like to speak to you about the subject of military ranks, particularly as that pertains to students in your online classroom. Military ranks, as you know, is an important part of the military culture. Every military member has a rank, and the ranks are many and varied and can often be confusing to the uninitiated. The different branches of the service, Army, Navy, Marines, and so forth, often have different titles to denote the same rank, which can make things a little bit more confusing. For example, in the Navy, a captain is a senior officer with 20 or more years of service generally, a lot of responsibility, and a lot of authority. On the other hand, in the Army, Navy, or the Army, Marines, and Air Force, a captain is a much junior officer, generally with about 3 to 10 years of service and a significantly less amount of responsibility and authority. So rank titles can be a little bit confusing. Another good example is in the enlisted ranks in the Army, a sergeant first class is the equivalent of a gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps, a chief petty officer in the Navy, and a master sergeant in the Air Force. So as you're dealing with your students, sometimes if they let you know what rank they are, it might be confusing to you, and it's often a good idea to check the internet if you want to know exactly what each rank title means. To try to smooth things out in the military hierarchy and give you an idea of where a particular service member is on the ladder of respect and authority and so forth, there are the enlisted and officer pay grades, which on the enlisted rank side range from 1 to 9, and on the officer side go from 1 to 10. The pay grades are the great equalizer. For example, I used a Navy captain before, comparing that to an Army, an Air Force, and Marine captain. A Navy captain is an 06, which would be the equivalent in the Army, Navy, and Army, Marines, and Air Force of a colonel. An Army, Air Force, and Marine captain is an 03, showing you that he's much lower on the pay scale. However, when you're addressing your military students, the use of title, not the pay grade, is the most important thing. So if you have a student in your class who has identified him or herself as Sergeant Smith or Captain Jones, it's certainly appropriate for you to use that address when you refer back to them. Now briefly, let me just talk about the two big differences in the rank structure. The enlisted personnel of the armed services, and this is generally speaking, are those members who graduate from high school, visit a recruiter or may have a recruiter come to their high school and enlist in the branch of their choice. And these are the folks that most often don't have a college degree, and you're most likely to find them in your associates and bachelor's programs. There'll be a few that have progressed along and are working toward master's degrees, but generally in your associates and bachelor's programs you'll find the enlisted members. And these are the folks that start at the lower grades like private, seaman, airman, that sort of thing, and work themselves up to sergeant, sergeant major, chief petty officer, and that side of the rank structure. On the other hand, there are the officer ranks. These are the folks who enter the service through one of the officer commissioning programs. They've either gone to a service academy like West Point or the Naval Academy or the Air Force Academy, or they've gone generally through one of the College Reserve Officer Training Corps, ROTC programs. And these people get their college degree and their officer's commission at the same time, usually during graduation. The third way of becoming an officer is when one of the enlisted members applies for officer candidate school, usually after they've been an enlisted member for a number of years and have probably gotten their college degree, and get selected to go to officer candidate school, and then when they graduate officer candidate school they become an officer. The officers are the ones who start out as lieutenants, for example, or ensign in the Navy, and go all the way up to general or admiral, and their responsibility and authority is governed by Title 10 of the U.S. Code, which is a little bit different than the enlisted side. But the important thing for you as an educator to know that officers almost always come in the service with a bachelor's degree at least. So you'll most likely see them in your graduate programs. Not to say that some might not go back for an undergraduate degree to pursue a hobby or something like that. But so most generally then you'll see officers in the graduate programs, enlisted members in the undergraduate programs. Now, even though the military is big on structure and authority and seniority and that sort of thing, and it's very important, and it becomes your identity in the military, your rank, as an educator, remember that you're dealing with these individuals as students. So referring to them as Mr. or Ms. is perfectly appropriate. If they have shared their rank with you, not all of them may do that, but if they've shared their rank with you, it's also appropriate to refer to them by military rank, like Captain Jones or Sergeant Smith, as I indicated earlier. Occasionally, one of these members may be feeling a bit empowered because of their rank, may try to intimidate you a little bit and get you to do something for them that might not be quite appropriate, like extra time or some kind of administrative favor. I would say that's unlikely, but it might happen, and I would just suggest to you not to be intimidated by that. Remember that you're a civilian employee of a civilian educational institution, and your military students are students just like your other students. If you want to know more about military ranks and the pay grades and the different titles and insignia, which is complicated and fascinating and actually a hobby of many people, there are numerous sites on the internet that can be of help to you and show you charts and pictures and diagrams and so forth. And I suggest if you want more information, go check one of those out.